everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to a napkin journal tutorial. Here's the finished page and the napkin. And the napkins come from NINNYSNAPKINS. You can check out the description box for a discount code. So I have a gessoed page here, and before I do the next step, I want to get some marks on the background. And this stamp is called English Decoration, and I will put a link to it through my Amazon affiliate. I just want to get some of this peeking through. Now, I said this is a napkin journal, and you saw a picture of the napkin that is in the focal point. But this page actually uses two napkins. One of the napkins is being used to create the entire background. Here it is, Gerbera Bunny, and I made this page, and I'll put a link to it. But I have some leftover pieces from that, as well as I have no intention of doing another bunny page, but I love the bright colors in these Gerberas. So I'm ripping out the bunny, although it probably wouldn't have mattered if I had left it in. Now, this is a great way to use up leftover napkins that you had from another project. You could also use collage papers or painted papers. You could also put a color down if you don't have any. But I always love using those little bits of paper. So whenever I take a napkin and I cut out the focal point, the rest of the napkin just goes in a box that, like in this project, I'm going to use. Now I'm gluing this down with my liquid matte medium from Liquitex. And my goal here is to pretty much get rid of white space. I can layer one napkin on top of another. That's not going to matter. Now, right along the left side, you'll notice that I have a lot of green there. And I guess if I was paying attention, I may have wanted to spread that green out so it wasn't all kind of in a line there. But in the end, it really didn't matter. So I'm just filling in, I'm ripping little pieces of flowers and layering it on because this is just my first layer of color. And because I'm using the napkins, I'm also getting some wonderful, wonderful texture. Now I grabbed this stencil from the Crafters Workshop, and you can get Crafters Workshop stencils, 6-inch stencils at NINNYSNAPKINS. 12-inch, you'll have to go through the TCW Shopify store to find this one, as I could not locate it on Amazon. I am using a makeup sponge and applying a stenciling through with black acrylic paint. I'm going over it to make sure I get good solid coverage. And I'm using a stencil that has a larger area that's covered. The area that's covered is going to stay the background color. Now this got very dark, so I thought, you know what? I'm going to grab my fine line bottle and I'm going to outline these kaleidoscopes. And you can just see as I do this how it brightens and lightens up that page. Now I love these fine line bottles. I have one with white paint, I have one with black, gold, brown, and Prussian blue. They are easy to use. I take regular acrylic paint and I thin it a little bit with water. And because the needle goes into the there's a needle that goes into the needle, it prevents it from clogging. I've not had a problem with that. And you can see how bright this is compared to the parts that aren't done. This really, I didn't film all of this because, you don't need to watch me doing that, but it really didn't take that long. And I turned the page from side to side, and it was really rather effortless, and it did not hurt my hand. in order to do that. And I tried to do it, where I have the needle in one angle and I'm turning the page, not so much moving the bottle. So there is the one with white, and there's without. You could have outlined it with black, but that would give a different look. You could have left it plain and that would give a different look. And there is the background. This picture looks a little bit dark to me. So then I started playing around with focal images. I grabbed a dragonfly and put it on, and I'm thinking, oh, the black and white works. You got a colorful black background. I had a stamped image of the poppy and a sentiment, and I thought, okay, that kind of works. And then I thought of this napkin. This is called Orchids with Love. And I thought, that pink kind of works. But I don't want to decoupage this onto the background. So what I'm going to do, after I watercut this out, I am going to do something to keep the orchids this bright pink. I am going to glue it down onto copy paper. You can put it on cardstock, you can put it on copy paper, and I'm just using my matte medium again and collaging it down on there. Now, the reason I'm not putting it right on the background is that background is fairly dark, and the napkin is going to turn translucent and you're going to see the background. I could paint out the background underneath it, but I thought I really want to keep it really pristine, and there's a lot of detail in this, so that's why I printed it on copy paper. So I cut it out and let it dry. Now I'm playing around with sentiments, and I am in the process of creating another sentiment pack that will be available soon, so stay tuned. And I'm playing on both sides. And you can see the orchid is staying white. You can't see the background behind it. It actually got a little bit brighter once you put the white background on it. Now I'm using the matte medium to push this down, and it takes a little while for it to start to adhere. I'll keep pushing it down. And if you have a problem, you can use gel medium for things that are a little heavier. And if you use cardstock instead of just copy paper, that might be advisable. And I kept the sentiment in the rectangle with a lot of white because there is so much color in the background. I think that just balances it out really nicely. And I chose a font that was fairly bold because I want to see it. I don't want it to fade away. Now I grabbed my liner or my angle brush, and I am shading using the floating acrylic technique around the outside of these orchids. And then I go in and I'm going to shade on top of them. Now there's a coat of matte medium on top of this. It has turned the napkin material into a non-porous surface, so the paint is going to stay where I want it. Shading around the sentiment as well. I can't tell you how happy I was with how this turned out. I don't know that I ever would have had such a busy background with a focal image. I would have thought of doing that. And I definitely had no plans to use this orchid napkin today when I was making this, but everything kind of came together, and I love when the creative process, it's such an exciting journey. So you can see the shading, it's making the orchid pop out a little bit. So then I grab white and I'm going to apply some highlights as well onto here. And it just always seems to give so much life to it when you do the shading and then the highlights. And as I go, I get a little bit more free, a little bit more easy with putting on the white highlights, because I really like the effect of that. Just trimming off excess. And I'm shading around the outside with the black acrylic paint. Then I decide I need more highlights, and here's where I let loose, and I am putting a lot of white paint on there, and it became very painterly, and I absolutely loved it. And you can see I'm turning it around, looking from this angle, looking from that angle. Then I decide I want to splatter with white paint using my fan brush. And some of the splatter went over the word, so I just easily wipe it off with a baby wipe quickly. Grab my fine line bottle, and I'm going to outline the page with the white paint. I hope you love this page as much as I do. I think it just turned out so spectacular. Oh, one more thing. Using my Secura glaze pen to frame the sentiment. Then I grabbed my repurposed recipe binder, turned into art journal. All these videos you can find in my tutorials. Thanks so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Follow me on Instagram @CreativeKatie. Here's some close-ups. Enjoy.